Hello, and welcome to the 8th episode of the Elite Exchange, a podcast that aims to answer your questions about FIRST robotics and everyday life. My name is Anushka.
And my name is Aryan, and we're the co-hosts for the show. Today, we've got a special guest that we're interviewing from IBM.
So, now that our guest is here, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Gianluca Astorino. I'm a 17 turning 18-year-old student at Ryerson University, as well as an internal applications developer at IBM and a small business owner.
Alright, so where exactly are you from?
I'm just from outside of Toronto, about 45 minutes outside the city. It's always cold here, and I love going into the city most of the time.
Alright, and what do you do at IBM? Like a little more in-depth.
Yeah, I'm an internal applications developer, so I work with a team to develop applications specifically for all the labs in Canada. So labs as in all the buildings for Canada. So there's some in Toronto, some in Ottawa, Halifax, Vancouver. We basically develop applications to sites. Like right now we're working on a fitness application. So for the gym at the labs, we're working on creating a system so people can book their spots for classes and stuff like that. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do there.
Alright, so just a follow-up question. You are at a pretty young age, so do you want to go into like how you got a job at IBM? It's a pretty big company.
Yeah, so well, basically I just applied for the job, and right at the time they were looking for somebody with skills in robotics, which is where I originally started 2 years ago back at IBM. So I originally did some work with robots in school and stuff like that, and also a lot with home automation. So I'm really good at working with Google Home and stuff like that and creating automated scripts. So they thought that I would be a good fit to work with the robots, which at the time what we did in IBM is we presented to some top executives who came to the lab in Markham, which is in Toronto here, and we created scripts to basically let the robot introduce them and take them to different places in the lab.
What got you interested into robotics?
It was always in school. We were watching a lot of shows and TVs about it, and also doing some work with scripting in my computer science classes. So I always thought that it was something, robotics is obviously on the rise, automated AI. So it was always an interest to me. I started watching YouTube videos on it, and I always just got more interested that way, especially working with like Google Home and stuff like that. Then I was able to realize that, this could be applied to different things.
So you talked twice about Google Home. Like, what are some of the cool things that you've done with that?
So some of the cool things I've done, I've created scripts to allow my PlayStation or Xbox to turn on with my TV and then turn on the lights behind it, and stuff like that is not really built into the Google Home, so you have to do a little bit of coding in the behind the scenes to be able to get that running. I've also done cool things where if I leave the house, then all of my lights and my alarm turn on if I forget to turn them on. What else have I done? I've created little games where if I talk to my Google Home about a certain game that I created, then it'll play it with me. Little things like that.
Sounds cool. Sounds really cool.
So, while getting started in the tech industry, were there any specific challenges that you faced?
The big one was adapting to people's different ways that people code specifically. So I develop in mostly Node.js, and I'm learning React as I go right now. And one thing that I noticed was knowing a little bit before, but then starting at IBM, getting more in depth. The ways people coded, you have to adapt to the ways that other people work, because if you don't adapt to it, then you're just going to be left behind. They're going to go on and kind of do it without you. So that was the biggest challenge that I faced personally. But one thing that I can say is just watch as many videos online as possible and practice as much as you can, because that's really the only way you're going to get better.
All right. Was there ever a time where you questioned your decision about going into like robotics, or you thought about maybe going into a different field? Like, were you ever interested in something else?
Specifically, actually, yeah, I was interested in aviation. So specifically becoming a pilot. I've always loved flying. My family and I, we travel a lot. So that was one thing that I was really questioning. Should I take the path of, the AI automated type route and going into the tech industry and learning how to code, or should I just focus on becoming a pilot? And the thing that really turned on for me was the fact that I enjoy a lot more. I enjoy it a lot to be able to code and just creating these like scripts and stuff with Google Home and working with robots. It's so enjoyable compared to, I mean, obviously flying is enjoyable too, but I just enjoy it a lot more being able to code and doing that type of thing.
Alright, do you think ever in the future maybe like you could just get like a, I don't know, is it like a flight license as like a hobby?
Yeah, I was actually thinking of doing it this summer, but it costs a lot, so I'm saving up. But yeah, there's some programs around Toronto where they teach you for about a year of in-class and also flying with an instructor, so that is something that I would really look into doing in the future.
Yeah, my sister's actually taking a license this summer, so
Oh,
that's
wow.
something that she's working on.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. So, is there anything that you think you would do differently from what you did in the past while you were working on and achieving your goals?
Yeah, looking back at it now, one thing I would do to get to the place where I am today in terms of coding specifically and working with robots is just practicing a lot more. When you first start off, it's intimidating because there's so much that you don't know, and it's hard to get into. You're like, oh, am I ever going to get to this place? Am I ever going to learn how to do this? But as long as you keep practicing, then that's the best way to get it done.
Alright, and so you also have started your own side business. Would you like to like go into that a little more? Like, what do you guys do there?
Yeah, sure. So I haven't talked too much about it in public yet. Just a couple of my friends know, but it's basically a website design and development company. So we basically take on projects where we're designing or developing any websites or web apps from scratch, or taking on sites that have already been developed and redeveloping them. So I've had the opportunity to work with some great people. I've worked with some professional athletes from the UK, some in Toronto here, some enterprise level businesses as well we've taken on contracts with. And I have a little bit of a team around me to help me bring in new contracts, and a couple developers as well.
Sounds really cool.
Nice. So, along the way, are there any big role models that you really looked up to?
That's a tough question. I think honestly my parents were a big driving factor for me. Just my dad being in the tech industry as well, it really helped me kind of see the possibilities and see the other ends of the spectrum where you can end up or what you can do with it. And just I also look up to Robert Herjavec a little. Take a little bit of a side turn there, but I got to meet him a couple of years ago, and he was just a really great guy, and I've always looked up to him, especially watching Shark Tank from as long as I can remember. He's just a kind of an inspiration, as he came from a communist country into Canada and kind of worked his way up. It's an inspiring story, so I've always looked up to him.
So, would you say that you still like look up to Robert, or?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. When the one time I got to meet him, I'm a huge car fan. I love cars. So the one time I was meeting him, we spent 15 minutes just talking about cars the whole time. It's just a great experience. He's a great guy.
So just for anyone who doesn't know, what I know about Robert is that he's one of the, I don't know, you'd call it not a judge, one of the entrepreneurs, I guess, on Shark Tank. One of the 5. Actually, there's a bunch, but he's one of them. I don't really know much about what he does actually. So would you like to go more in depth in that?
Yeah, so he sold his company, I think it was over 20 years ago, but then recently he retired off the money he made from that, but he started up the Herjavec Group, which is a cybersecurity company, and now they're making over $200 million a year. So that's a big company.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's also a panelist host judge type thing on Shark Tank. There's 6 or 7 of them in total, but he's one of them, and yeah, he's just a great guy overall.
So, are there any tools that you use to help you along the way while like developing your career? Like this can range from like simple things such as like schedules, or to like or to like more complex routines? Anything that you did to be like, I don't know, be more productive, I guess?
Yeah, the big thing that I'm working on now, specifically like as I was getting older, I realized how important it is to be organized with like a complete schedule breakdown. Even if you don't know what's going to happen in the next couple days, try and plan out what you're going to be doing, or just take on new tasks and adapt to them. Because if you don't have your stuff in order, then it's going to be a lot harder to get things done. And the other thing is don't procrastinate. I was a huge procrastinator in my early years of high school, and it did not help me at all. So now running a business, I can see how important it is not to procrastinate. You always want to get stuff done early. It's just way better overall.
So, what are some things that you didn't anticipate when entering the tech industry?
Probably didn't anticipate how many other people there are around you that are like you. What I mean by that is there's so many other people doing the same things as you, so what makes you stand out more than the other person, right? That was the big thing. I always thought that going into, especially being a developer, it was one of those things that was highly looked upon. But going into like a corporate company or even at school, you can see how many other people are taking the same paths as you. So you need to find, what are the ways to almost, what stands out against versus them, right? So that was the big thing. I didn't realize that going into it, that there would be so many other people like me.
Alright, so what keep you motivated to keep on working this hard?
One thing that keeps me motivated is just when you enjoy something so much, then it doesn't really feel like work. So find something that you enjoy. Find something that you enjoy doing all the time. Like I get up pretty much at 5:30, 6 in the morning every morning, and then it starts from there. I pretty much don't stop. But I enjoy it so much that it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like I'm doing what I enjoy doing. So that's one big key factor that keeps me motivated, for sure.
So, what are some of your long-term goals?
Long-term goals for sure. They start at since I was a kid, I always dreamed about having my own business. So I would eventually like to branch off into the AI sector of things, and maybe even incorporate robotics into my own business somehow. That's down the road for sure. But overall, the long-term goal for me is to run my own business and provide jobs for people and help out the economy really in any way I can.
Are there any exciting projects that you're working on right now?
Right now, there's not specifically any super exciting projects. In the past, with my side business, I've worked on setting up, like, again, this is super enjoyable for me. This might not sound interesting to other people, but setting up back-end services for people's businesses. So I have a friend who runs a backyard swimming business, and his is taking off big time now. So he's expanding and hiring people. And one thing that I was lucky enough to do for him was set up an internal dashboard, I'll call it, so that he can run his entire business through it, in terms of like collecting payments and stuff like that, and keeping track of all the students, as well as letting people access all of their documents that he sent out to them. So all online through the cloud, and that was a super exciting project for me because it was something I've never done before, and it looks good on the resume.
A lot of our viewers are probably really interested in pursuing a similar career as you. Do you have any important traits that you think people should have when going into your field?
I think teamwork is probably the biggest thing. You're going to be working with a lot of people, whether you're a developer or you're going to be running your own business, or if you're working on robotics, whatever you're going to be doing, teamwork is the most important thing. You're going to have to work with team members, people who you like, people who you don't like, people who are like you, who are not like you, and people above you who you're going to have to report to. The biggest thing is to just keep an open mind about it, and just teamwork. That's really the biggest thing for me.
All right. Also, a little more off topic. What are some things you like to do during your off time to relax? Like, I know you said that you enjoy all programming a lot, but what if you want to get away from that? What's something? Do you have any like hobbies that you like to take part in?
Yeah, I play the guitar. It's been a while since I've played, but I do enjoy doing that as well. I love driving, so I'll literally just take the car and go for drives. That's another thing I like doing. And the other thing is traveling. I'm actually planning a trip up to Alberta. I don't know if you guys know where that is, but it's like 4 hours west of where I am, flight. So I'm planning a trip with a couple of friends. We're gonna go see the Northern Lights, like the Aurora Borealis. I've always wanted to see that, so we're planning a trip up in December to go up there. So traveling is another huge thing I like to do.
Have you ever like been to Canada? Is a very beautiful place, like the Canadian Rockies and all that. Have you ever been there?
I've never been on the west coast actually. I've always stuck on where I am here. So I've been up north in Ontario before. I actually just came back from Montreal and Quebec City. So it was beautiful to see the old parts of history in Canada, like the 1800s where all the people settled and stuff like that. So it was really cool to see that.
So what is a lesson that you've learned throughout the course of your career?
One big lesson that I think I've learned is you have to stay determined and hardworking all the time, because really there's someone always there to, in a sense, replace you. I don't want to say replace you, but there's always someone else waiting for your spot. So if you don't work hard to achieve the goals you have and also provide for your team, then there's a chance you won't have that spot anymore. And at the beginning when I started working, I didn't really have that mindset, and so sometimes if I didn't want to do some work, then I would just take a break. But you really can't, because there's always someone waiting.
So before we end, are there any final words of wisdom or final pieces that you would like to share? It doesn't really have to be anything career related or robotics related. It can just be about anything.
I would say just appreciate your family. Family is really important to me. So appreciate your family while you have them around. Enjoy as much time as you can with them. Work hard, but don't work too hard to the point where you don't get to spend time with your family.
All right. Well, thank you again, Gianluca, for coming on the show, and we hope you had a great time. I know we did have a great time, and we hope the viewers at home also had a great time.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. Thank you, and good night.